yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts, I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong, I won't stop to the top, so you better back off and get lost. I'ma stay loud, stay proud, never running out, never heading south. I'll be spreading out, call it word of mouth, can't put me down, I'll be getting loud. You can have your doubts, not what I'm about, have your cloud, it be raining now, I keep making sound, go another round, I'm legend bound, can't stop me now. You don't wanna fuck with me, a slow burn like a disease. Just tell me that I can and I'll show you things that you couldn't believe. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Night's Watch. I am so happy to see everyone. I thought I was going to die of cold this week. It was pretty rough out there in what was supposed to be sunny Florida. But you know what? It snowed a lot. And it was cold. Like, I've never been colder in my life. And I don't know what to make of that. I mean, it's Florida. Come on. They got, like, dinosaurs and stuff over there. What are y'all doing? Somebody tell the crazy weather manipulator people to quit. Just stop. We've had enough here in the South. We're done. We're done. We've had all we want. Thank you. We all built a snowman. We're good. But anyways, guys, I've got an awesome show planned for y'all tonight, and my guest, I have the feeling that you guys will probably know. So, without further introductions and words, let's get our good buddy Anna up here.
Hey, everybody.
What up?
Hey.
Hi. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good myself.
Awesome. Well, I am so excited to have you up here. I mean, we've been friends for a little bit, and I love it when you guys are around.
Oh, we have such a fun time.
Yes. You guys have a way of just lighting up the room when you're there, and I love you to death.
Oh, well, thank you. We think the same of you.
Oh, well, thank you.
And it was nice to meet your wife in Alabama, too. She was really sweet.
Most of the time, yes. Most of the time. Oh, yeah. So, the agenda for the night is, one, I know that you guys have a new channel out there. And you're going into doing some cryptids and stuff. So, before we get into all the fun stuff, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
All right. My name is Anna, and I have had paranormal experiences for as long as I can remember. A lot when I was little. I can remember quite a few of those happenings to me when I was a kid. I think a lot of it centered around my mom because she built into a lot of stuff that I think was attaching to her. So as a little child having to experience those things, I think that's where that came from. And so through my years, I've always had things happen. I feel like I am a bit of an empath as well. So is my oldest daughter. Did not realize that for a long time.
Yeah.
Finally figured that out when I became an adult. So that way I could learn how to, put that a barrier up to keep from feeling things that were not good. And I learned to do that pretty well as I got older. Um, then we moved out here to the farm, and I haven't had a whole lot of experiences here on the farm. It's been pretty quiet. So that is a good thing until, we go out to the LBL and things happen, and a couple of other areas that we investigate. Sometimes things happen, sometimes they don't. So it's never 100%.
Right. And it's often like that, it's one of those things, like if you go out there expecting for stuff to pop off,
you
might be disappointed. So worst case scenario, always plan to just go hang out and have fun with your friends out in the woods, right?
That's right. That's right.
That's right.
Have that campfire and just have fun.
Exactly. That is the main thing. Good fellowship. But so talk to us a little bit first about the farm.
All righty.
What you do on that channel.
Jonestead Farm is just where I do a lot of gardening, and I've gardened all my life. My parents have gardened, my grandparents gardened. So we don't have a huge operation. It's mainly just for us. We have 10 acres. So it's just our personal garden. I sell some on the side when I have extra. But I mainly do that because I'm trying to get away from all these chemicals that's in our foods. So I know what I'm putting in my soil. I know what seeds I'm buying, or that I'm saving myself and growing the next year, and what I'm putting on my own plants and how I'm preserving them. So that is my main goal when we did the garden.
Right.
So, and I do that every year. We have some fruit as well that I put jams and jellies up. And so that is for Jonestead Farm. I just do that. But also, I am doing that as I have mobility issues. So I do try to show people that you can get out there and do some things and still being mobility impaired. So.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah.
No
problem.
Yeah. And that's so important. I mean, because Lord, the things they do to food now, it's like, is it even food? I mean, do I have to even bring up pink slime? What even is pink slime? I don't know either. It doesn't sound very appetizing.
No, it
doesn't sound very appetizing.
And don't get me wrong, I still don't eat perfectly. But I try my best, with what I have here at home. I still have to buy some stuff from the store, but at least it's eliminating some of that I'm putting in my body. So.
Right. And that's super important. It really is. We're supposed to let our food be our medicine, right?
That's right. I do grow herbs as well. So I use some of that to, like you said, as our medicine.
Right. That's super important. So with that being said, guys out there in YouTube land and future YouTube land and Rumble land and what's the other one? Spotify. Yeah, those guys. So all of y'all out there, go and check out Jonestead Farms in Cryptic, Kentucky. If you want to learn about some farming, go there. If you want to learn about some creepy stuff that happens out in the woods, she got you there too.
Yep.
So with that being said, now that we kind of got the business handled and all that, if you don't mind, talk to us a little bit first, if you don't care, about your NDE.
Sure.
Awesome.
I was much younger at the time. I was 24 years old, and my daughters were 6 years old and 10 months old. And we were looking at lake properties. Our earliest dream, mine and Kevin, was to have a house on the lake. So we had gone to an area in Garrett County on Harrington Lake to look at lake lots. On the way home, it was about 5 or 6 in the evening. It was on a Sunday in April. So, the sun is starting to go down about that time. And we were on a 2-lane road. It was a country road. There were no emergency lanes. And I'm kind of twisted a little bit, turned towards Kevin, talking to him. Didn't have a seatbelt on at that time. This was back in 95 when they weren't making you do that. So I
Right.
wasn't wearing one. The kids were buckled up. My youngest, my Timothy, she was in a car seat.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden, I'm seeing the grill of a Toyota coming straight for us. And Kevin yelled out, "Hold on." And I don't remember the exact impact, but I remember being awake right afterwards because I could hear my kids crying. And that was my main concern, was that they were okay. And because I could hear them crying, I knew that they were at least alive.
Right.
Sorry about that. My phone went out for a second.
Oh,
And and
it's all
then
good.
I was smelling like the burning rubber. I could smell the antifreeze. I wasn't feeling any pain at the time. The dash came in so far on me that Kevin reached over to try to scoot my seat back, and he couldn't get his hand down there at the metal because the metal was just in on me.
Right.
And he got up out of the car, and we just so happened, it was one of those God things, that wreck happened in front of a volunteer fire station. And the woman had come completely over the yellow line and hit us head on doing 60. He never hit her brakes. So it was bad. It flung our car around. Like I said, there was no emergency lanes. She had people behind her, so we couldn't swerve over to miss her at all.
Right.
Excuse me. So the Jaws of Life came on the scene, cut pieces of the car, pulled the roof back as much as they could. And I remember it getting real bright when they pulled that roof off the car. And then they put a sheet over me, and they needed to lift me out of the car. And they put me in an ambulance. There was air medical on scene, but the gentleman in the other car, he had kind of went through the windshield. So he had major head trauma. So they put him in the only air med that was available at the time and got him to the hospital. They put me in the ambulance. So if anybody has ever been in a car wreck and you need to be transported to the hospital, you know that they put you on a flat backboard and they put that around your neck to keep your head steady, keep your body steady, and they strap you down. You're not sitting up. You're really not going to be twisting your head because they want to keep your body stable and still. So they loaded me in the ambulance. And the next thing that I remember is I'm sitting up looking at the paramedics as they're working on me. Now that can't happen. Not when you're strapped down to a backboard like that. But I was watching them. They took a curved pair of scissors and started cutting my shoes off and my pants off because I was swelling and bleeding so much. And they I watched them as they took my wedding rings off. And then I blinked, it was like a blink. And I was looking down at myself from the top of the ambulance, looking down. And I watched them as they just furiously were working on me. Because I had been crushed from the waist down. It had severed my femoral artery and I was bleeding to death. So they were working really hard on me. And I just remember, even though this was happening and it was traumatic, I was very calm. I had a complete sense of peace. While I watched this, I was even kind of curious. I was like, why are they hurrying about so? Everything's going to be fine. That's exactly how I felt. Just perfectly at peace and everything was going to be perfectly fine.
Right.
And then it felt like another blink, and I'm back on that backboard, strapped down, and I'm hearing the ambulance sirens, and it's just where it's going down the road. I'm feeling that ambulance going back and forth as I'm laying there strapped down. After that, I don't remember a lot. They got me to UK hospital, and I was in ICU for 3 days. I was on a ventilator for 24 hours. I had a 10-hour emergency surgery, which I woke up on the table. It was such a long surgery. It was just for a moment, and I just remember my eyes popped open. I saw the bright lights above me, and I guess it must have been the anesthesiologist they had the mask and their eyes were kind of wide, and they were working on my leg because they were
Yeah.
inserting an external fixator and they have to drill into your bone to put those screws in. So
Right.
it felt like a hot poker going into my leg. It was just for a moment. And the anesthesiologist kind of pet me on the chest a little bit and I was back out. But I was awake for a few seconds that I remembered that happening during my 10-hour surgery. So, yeah, I was in UK for a month. And when they sent me home, it was on an ambulance. It was on a stretcher in an ambulance to send me home. And I actually never went back to my own home again. They sent me to my mom and dad's house because they did not know if I would walk again. They were not sure if I was going to live when I got there.
Right.
They sequestered my family into a private room and brought in the hospital minister and psychologist to prepare my family for my death. So I lived, and then they weren't sure if I would walk again because my bones were just so crushed.
Right.
But I did that too. But I was bedridden for about 6 months total, and then I was able to start taking some small steps. But while I was bedridden in my mom and dad's house in their living room, my daughter Tiffany, my oldest, she was 6 at the time. She was very traumatized by what she saw at the wreck. She told me that when they pulled me up out of the car, she was watching, and she said, "Mommy, you were all bloody and your legs were going the wrong way." So she had terrible, terrible nightmares for about 2 weeks. And she never did come see me in the hospital because she was absolutely terrified that she was going to see me like that again. But when I did get to my mom's, the kids were there. Kevin was there. And because I just needed care, I couldn't even turn over by myself. My family would have to come in and turn my body so that I wouldn't get bed sores from being in one spot for too long. So I wanted to make a spiritual impression on my daughter because she had been so traumatized. And I did not want her to blame God for what had happened because we live in a fallen world and Satan and his cronies are going to do anything and everything they can to take your faith from you.
Right.
So I was trying to express this as best I could to my very impressionable, traumatized 6-year-old daughter. So I was having a talk with her one day while I was in my hospital bed, and she was standing beside me. And I was talking about how God had actually saved me to be here. It was a miracle that I was here. The doctors all said that too. And she said, "I know that, Mommy, because I saw the angel move in front of you when the car hit us." And not that I was like completely shocked that something like that could happen. I'd always heard of things like that happening. I didn't expect to have it happen to me or to us. And so I was curious and I would ask her questions. So I was like, "Well, what did the angel look like?" She said it was blonde haired and had white robes on. And I kept referring to it as a she. And my daughter said, "Mom, it was a he angel." And I thought that was so interesting coming from a 6-year-old because, usually, typically, and I always tell this to people that if we're looking at figurines that are in the stores or a lot of paintings or whatever, it's usually a feminine type angel.
Right.
But she told me, she corrected me. "No, Mama, it was a he angel." So, and it was kind of like she turned the tables on me.
Right. Well, the good news is at least the angel she saw didn't have eyeballs everywhere. So
Exactly.
at least there's that. The whole "be not afraid" thing. Sir, this is the most terrifying experience of my life. What are you talking about? So, so there's that. So let me actually bring up the picture of the car wreck because, the story that you're telling is amazing, right? But a little bit of visuals is good. So let me see if I can figure this out. And so Everybody can see that, right? So you were here on the passenger side.
Yep, I was on the passenger side. Kevin was driving. The dash came in so far on us that the radio put a cut in his stomach and
Yeah.
the steering wheel bent.
Oh my goodness. I mean, Lord, I mean, guys, I mean, y'all see what I'm seeing. There is no passenger side there anymore.
Mhm.
Like, oh my God. Praise the Lord. I mean, wow. That is just intense.
Yeah, and also I didn't really have any injuries above the waist. I didn't have any cuts on my face from all that glass from the windshield. You know, that it's kind of like, yeah, that angel came right in and the top part of me was okay. I didn't break any ribs. I didn't have any spinal damage. It was
Right.
just from the waist down, from where the dash came in on me. It broke my pelvic in multiple places. It crushed my left femur. It crushed my right ankle to cornflakes. It busted up my tibia right at my right knee joint. So, you know, it crushed it right in those joints. And they said that's very hard to heal from and come back without having any issues. And that's why you see me walking in the forest. I've got my walking stick and I've got a limp, but I'm out there.
That's right. Ain't nothing wrong with being a pimp with a limp. You got it. You got it. You're making it work, and you know, just praise the Lord. I'm so glad that you're okay, and
Well,
that
thank
you're
you.
able to get out there and do the things that you want to do, because
Yeah.
that's important too.
Yeah.
Obviously you've got stuff that the Lord wants you to do, so
Absolutely.
that's
There's something
awesome.
I'm supposed to be doing. So I hope that I'm on the right path, and I have been with that second chance of my life of doing what he's wanting me to do. So
Right. And I'm sure that is the case. I stand in agreement with you on that. But wow, I almost don't even want to transition off that, because it's still it's so mind blowing. It's so mind blowing. I can only.
now my story is in this book. I am story 100 in this.
Oh,
And
wow! I didn't know that.
yeah, and in this one, Appalachian Angels, I'm story number 5.
Wow!
And
Wow!
it's in this one too. It's called Limbus for the Soul, How the Lord of the Rings Enriches Everyday Life. So my story's in that. And we all got to write a letter to Peter Jackson and put it in this book, and they got to send him one of these books with all of our letters in it from the authors in here.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Wow. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So as far as the feeling that you have stuff to do out there, how do you like to put the paranormal into this box?
Well, I didn't know for a long time. I grew up, I was a kid in the 70s. I was a teenager in the 80s. And during that time, you didn't talk about it much. Like if I tried to talk about it to my mom and dad, they were like, you're just having nightmares. Just no, you're a kid making things up in your head. Not so much my mom, but my stepdad. My stepdad really didn't believe in the paranormal at all. And like I said earlier, I think a lot of it was connected to my mom. My mom would not defend me and my brother in front of my stepdad. Now, my stepdad was never mean. He just didn't believe in the paranormal. And he would be like,
Right.
oh, you're just having a bad dream or something like that. But if it was just my mom, she would tell us all kinds of things that happened to her when she was married to my biological dad before he died. And there was just so many things that happened with him. I do have a story about that. It's on Amazon. It's called The Promise. It's just a short story. A.J.
Mhm.
Wood is my pen name for that. That is a true story that happened to my mother when she was pregnant with my brother, and my dad died. And it was a really crazy story, but it was true.
Mhm.
So for the paranormal, for me, I've never really had a positive, happy experience with most of it.
Mhm.
So from my point of view, that's the experiences that I have had. They've always been frightening to me. They've never been peaceful. Um, when things are there and they scare you, and me feeling like I'm an empath as well. I've just never got a comfortable, nothing like that has ever happened for me. And I don't
Right.
dismiss that it's been that way for other people. I don't dismiss that at all. But for me personally, I just feel like it's a lot of deceit going on. Like my mother, to this day, she's 84. She sees kids in her house all the time. And she's thinking she's seeing her dead brothers and sisters who died when they were 1 and 2 years old. And I'm like,
Mm.
Mom, you're not seeing your brothers and sisters. You're being tricked. And so she
Right.
said prayers and they left. So, just stuff like that happens with my mom all the time.
Mhm.
My oldest daughter tends to have paranormal. So for me, when paranormal things happen, I'm just very careful
Mhm.
in how I deal with it, because I don't want to. Now, this is for me personally. I'm not going to call it up, gift it, that kind of thing. I feel like
Right.
for me, anything that I've never done anything like that. I've never played the Ouija board. I've never done stuff like that, because my mother always told me don't do that, because she did those things and she got attachments, and they have not let go of her entire life. She's 84 now.
Right.
So that's always been something for me that I haven't done. Um, but I just feel like it's something you need to be very careful if you're going to deal with it. And if
Right.
it's happening to you and you didn't open a door, because I do feel like those doors can be opened, but what are you opening those doors to come in? What's coming in? Do you
Mm.
really know what's coming in? So
Yeah, don't I know? I mean, Lord, I thought I was talking to aliens doing this whole CE5 thing that I discovered and was like, "Oh, this is so cool. Let's do that." Little did I
yeah,
know I was literally inviting demons to come and mess with me the entire time. They might have portrayed themselves as aliens,
exactly.
but when you're like, come talk to me, do this, do that, interact, show me you're real. Oh, they gonna do that. They gonna do that.
Yep.
So
Yep.
be careful.
Yeah.
That's the moral of the story,
Yeah. And
because yeah.
I do- I have in the Bible, it will tell you not to talk to the dead. So if you're not able to do it, why is God telling you not to do it? So I've always wondered about that, but it also says that when we die, we are asleep in death.
Right.
So,
The Bible is very clear about
yeah,
what ghosts are,
right. Yeah,
right? And can you actually contact the dead? Yes, but
you're not supposed to because of what
yeah,
else
the
has
whole
come through.
right, the whole Witch of Endor story, like
Yeah, yeah,
it's pretty serious business, and it's not on the recommend list.
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So, yeah,
But
I've had to be careful through most of my life when things have happened. And I have quite a few things, like I said, that happened when I was a kid, and I didn't know how to handle it then. And through not being able to talk to my parents, I was always searching for some kind of understanding because I didn't know. And all these years, even though, I never spent my entire life going to church, but there were times that I did go to church. And I never had a minister or Sunday school teacher, anybody explain to me what I have learned in the last couple of years doing a study on the fallen angels. So
mhm.
it put so many puzzle pieces into place and answered so many biblical questions for me. So I feel like I have finally have an understanding on a lot of things that I did not know and was searching for through my lifetime because of the paranormal events that happened to me.
Right. Now, on that note, my moderator Pam has a good question. Do you know what your blood type is? I bet you do.
Oh yeah, I'm Rh negative.
Knew it.
Because you are too, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, the fun stuff with that.
Oh yeah. That was what started me on a deeper quest was when I got pregnant with my oldest daughter, and they were like, my doctor was like, well, you need to have a ROGAM shot so that your body doesn't try to get rid of and kill your unborn baby. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It's like, how does that even happen? That made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. So about 5 or 6 months along, they will give you a ROGAM shot in your hip just in case your unborn baby is Rh positive.
Right.
When the mother is Rh negative. So that doesn't happen. And it's because you're missing an antigen. Your blood is missing an antigen. And I'm like, how does that happen? It's still 50% my DNA. Why would my body try to attack my own child that I'm carrying in my womb? And for years, I tried to find out answers to that, and I couldn't. Till I studied about the fallen angels.
Right. I was about to say, funny story that, it all started a long time ago on a stormy night or something. Yeah, it's a huge rabbit hole, folks, but spoiler alert, it gives you all the answers when you go down that path. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying, don't shoot the messenger. But with that being said, good segue there. What a professional you are, Anna. So, on that note, I know that you guys do a lot of investigating out there. I know you hang out with my good buddy Barton a lot, and you guys do your other stuff a lot out there in other parts other than the LBL.
Yeah.
And I know that you have some really interesting things that's happened of late.
Yeah.
Talk about it?
Sure. If you want to go into the most recent one where we caught the entity in the trees, we can do that if you want to dig into that one.
Sure. Let's do that.
All righty. Well, this was an investigation that I did with just my oldest daughter, Tiffany, and my husband, Kevin. And we went to Anderson County, Kentucky. Now, this is an area that for years and years has had many, many Bigfoot sightings. It has had tons of UFO sightings. It has orbs. People have seen all kinds of things in this particular area. It's close to Wildcat Road. That area was featured on Monster Quest back in 2010, I think it was.
Ooh.
I don't know if I'm right on that date, the 2010. And Small Town Monsters has done 2 documentaries on that area.
Very cool.
I knew exactly where it was because my husband actually grew up just a few miles away from there. So I was like, hey, let's move down there and investigate because that's, close to home. My husband grew up on the Kentucky River, right on the banks of the Kentucky River. If you walked out his grandparents' back door, you would row down the bank into the river. So he's a river rat. He grew up right on the river. And what did Bart say? It was 2009. 2009. Okay. So
Hillbilly Beast episode.
Yep, the Hillbilly Beast episode.
Thanks, Barton. You got us too, buddy. Appreciate you.
So we headed down there. It was a Saturday. I think it was November the 16th. And that was when we had the supermoon. So we headed down in that area. And it is a wildlife preserve. And it's close to Taylorsville Lake. So we get down there. And they have this little parking lot. And we park. And it's a beautiful night. There's no clouds in the sky. You are seeing all these stars. It's still. Just beautiful. That super moon is shining. You can see pretty good out there. So, but when we're driving down that road, and it's just a one lane little rock road going into the woods, I got freaked out pretty bad. It was kind of like my flight or fight response was kicking in, but it was mostly flight. So I knew that, I don't know, I just had this feeling something weird was going to happen, and I can't run. So my thought was, am I going to be putting my family in any danger if we get out there and I can't get away from this? So thinking that, it was just a terribly overwhelming feeling when we got down in there. So I stayed in the car. I rolled the window down. Tiffany got out. I'm not kidding you. Within 5 minutes of her getting out of the car and us rolling the windows down, we started hearing stuff. I was seeing light anomalies all over the place. But they were like little flashes. It wasn't something that you could train your eyes on and watch. These were just like little flashes of lights. And it's a wooded area, so some of it was back in the woods, so you couldn't tell exactly what they were, if they were round or, you were just seeing these flashes of lights. There's no houses where we were. There's no barns, nothing like that. They did have a hunting blind as you first come in, but that was the only building that was back in that preserve area. So Tiffany's standing there, and there's a wooded area behind us as well that goes kind of straight up. And she was having rocks thrown at her. She could hear it moving around, so she would go and turn around and try to film. And then we heard the howl. And if you've been out there long enough and you start hearing the coyotes, usually you're going to hear one of these crazy, odd, deep howls before the coyotes. It's usually right before the coyotes, and the coyotes join in, and then sometimes it'll be domestic dogs. So we heard the howl. We got that on audio as well. Then we decided to leave that area and start heading out. Now it's woods, and then you've got cleared areas where they have food plots where, they grow corn and stuff through the summer. So we pull in one of these clear areas because we're hearing the coyotes again. So we're wanting to stop and listen. I'm starting to see the light anomalies again. So I start taking pictures, and Tiffany starts taking pictures. I took a picture at 10:37 of this grove of trees, and there's nothing in it. 2 minutes later, Tiffany takes a picture, and there is a figure, I'm calling it an entity, standing in this grove of trees. And we're just like, what in the world? We didn't see it with our own eyes. We saw it in the pictures. Or Tiffany's picture.
And that's what I have up here. So you guys have a before picture, and it's awesome. I can see my mouse too. That's super distracting. So this is the grove of trees, and this is emptiness. Like, we can all see nothing is really going on here. Nothing too fancy. All right. So let me see here. Stop sharing. And let me pull this back up. I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but I am not the fanciest can of spam. Let's see here. Pull up. Okay. All right. Got it pulled up. Back to present. Share screen. Entire screen, I think. Let me pull this guy back up. And show me what I want to see. Share. There we go. Now, does everybody see the figure standing here now? Isn't that neat?
Yeah, that was wild.
So, let's see here. Oh, there we go. Zoom in a little bit. So, there's something standing there.
Absolutely. We don't know what it is.
Because that space was blank a second ago.
Yep.
And like you said, 2 minutes in between.
Yep.
Now you've got this amazingly gigantic humanoid-ish figure hanging out here.
Yeah.
And granted, it's not like full-blown, clear as day 4K camera right there.
Yeah.
You can ask it what it wants to drink, right? It's like it's almost phased out a little bit.
Like it's
you know?
manifesting.
Exactly. It's manifesting.
Yeah.
And the size of that is astounding.
Yeah. We went back during the daytime because we were so curious to compare. And I forgot to send you that picture. But Tiffany went down there and stood by the tree that was by the far right in that picture. And she was like itty bitty tiny in that picture compared to that thing standing there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that looks every bit of 20 feet to me.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I'm going to at least take the under at 20.
Yeah. Like I said, I have no clue what that is. Maybe it didn't fully manifest itself. And one thing that I noticed as well was like in my picture, even though there wasn't anything in my picture, that little grove of trees was blurry. But the bigger trees, the taller trees to the left were clear. But in that little grove, even in my picture, it was blurry. But in Tiffany's, I guess it decided to show itself.
As far as the blurriness goes, everybody likes to complain about blurry. But there's very few things that can actually cause that to happen with electronics. But the point and moral is that there are things that can do that.
Yeah.
And to my knowledge, the most common one, which is what I think is what happens with all of this, is radiation.
Okay.
Yeah, it can be radiation in the typical sense that we know about, as well as electromagnetic radiation as well.
Yeah.
Both of which are capable of creating this effect. So that's one thing to keep in mind out there, folks.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, we were absolutely shocked. We were heading out to go home, and Tiffany was looking through her pictures. Like she just immediately got in the car and started looking through to see if she caught anything. She's like, "Oh my gosh, what is this?" And she showed it to me. So I pulled up my pictures to see if I had caught it in mine. No, but she did. It was crazy. Now, I did catch light anomalies in some of my pictures, and it was pretty wild. Right at the river, right in the trees at the river. And so it was a very active night. We were probably there for 2.5 hours, I think it was. And it was very active that night. And maybe it had something to do with the supermoon that night. I don't know.
I mean, we like to speculate, that cryptids and stuff like let's just say paranormal. It's all connected, but anyways, but
exactly.
we like to say that running water and things like that produce energy that they can tap into. And I'm sure that's 100% true. But I would also say, keep in mind, why is there all this legacy about full moon?
Yeah.
And we take it for granted, but think about the fact, or remember the fact that that's what causes the tides on the ocean.
Yep.
The moon has the ability to do that to the entire ocean.
And more women give birth during a full moon too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why is that the case? I don't know. I don't do space, but I think it's interesting. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, so we do plan on going back out there because it's pretty close to us. So that's a good investigation spot for us to head to. So we're going to go back and see if, if we don't get any results at all, is it because it was the supermoon that night? Makes you curious. Did it have something to do with it if nothing at all happens next time we go out? but you just don't know what those parameters are. What is it? What is all those little workings that fit together to allow these things to show themselves? And that's very interesting. Yeah.
Wow. So, okay. Now, what time of day was that? I'm sure it actually said it on the picture.
Yeah, it was 10:30 at night when we actually were taking the pictures that we caught that thing. We got there, I think, around, it was like between 9 and 9:30 in the evening. We got down there. So, and we left, I'm thinking, around between 11 and 11:30. So, yeah, it was at night. Sun was down, but it was very bright because of that supermoon.
Right.
But we had all kinds of things going on, and there's just all kinds of reports from that particular area of high strangeness. So it's a good spot. And Wildcat Road. Wildcat Road is very, very popular, and this is very close to Wildcat Road. And I have family that live on Wildcat Road, but it's closer to the town end of Wildcat Road. But there's been a whole lot of sightings down on Wildcat as well. So it's just this one big general area down in there, and it's close to the Kentucky River. So it's interesting and a good spot.
For sure. Yeah, it's a good find. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, all right. So we've established that we got all kind of cool stuff going on out there.
Yeah.
And I know that you go to the LBL a lot.
Yeah.
And I know that I saw a movie that you were actually in, so congratulations on having an IMDb.
Oh, well, thank you. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, you got one. Isn't that neat?
So with that
being said, talk to me a little bit about going to the LBL for shooting for the documentary. Sorry, words are not working well, and my cat that is stuck up here with me is driving me insane. She keeps halfway jumping on me and licking me and rubbing on me, and then I scratch my nose and I get hair on my face. Sorry, I'm distracted, y'all.
Well, I have a cat driving me crazy too, but he's outside and he can hear me talking, and he's jumping up and hanging onto the windowsill outside.
Yours does it too? Okay, good. Yeah. Glad that's normal then. Anyway, sorry. So yeah, talk to me a little bit about shooting the documentary out there. What was that like?
So Greg wanted us to meet at a certain location for the filming of our interview. And so when we got there, it was like a really pretty time of the day because it was like the sun was going down, the golden hour,
Right.
But it was in March. And so Letitia and I were out there, and they have these huge rocks out there at Empire Farm. And we sat on one of these huge rocks, and Brent and Greg were bringing out the cameras and the lighting. And even though the batteries were full on these lights, they wouldn't work. They kept having to go back to the truck and switching out the lights. And then the audio wasn't doing very well, so they actually had to mic us up because there was something going on with that. And there have been just really crazy things that have happened at Empire Farms just about every time that I've been down there, particularly to Letitia. But yeah, once again, we're sitting there trying to do our interview, and those things are happening and they're looking at the batteries like, this is a new battery. Why is this happening? So we would get going on the interview, and then bam, the lights would go out, or, the audio messed up, switched. I had to mic us up for that. So yeah. Oh, there's that kitty that keeps bothering you. Give me attention.
She's driving me insane. Sorry, keep going.
So yeah, that's basically as far as for me and Letitia for our interview. That was what happened with us while we were trying to sit there giving an and give that interview. Just, you
Right.
know, typical draining of the batteries on electronics.
Right. Yeah, I know he and I talked about that when I was out with him filming for the next one coming up, and pretty sure we got a solution to that problem. So from here
Awesome.
on out, we're going to be testing out the use of Faraday cage bags around
Oh,
equipment
yeah,
while they're not being in use, so they cannot be drained. So
that's a
let's
good
see.
idea.
Yeah, let's see if these Faraday bags that they sell on Amazon works.
Yeah.
Oh, are you done now? Okay. Get on. Leave me be. So, yeah. It's interesting though, because, you know, once again, electromagnetics, you know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's the same thing that keeps coming up always. You know,
Yep.
people having electrical feelings and feeling like they're being watched, and the
Yeah.
spidey senses. Like, it doesn't seem to matter what the particular phenomenon is. It's reported across the entire spectrum, and that's
Yeah.
interesting. It's very
Mm-hmm.
interesting. So yeah, I'm thinking that's gonna, you know, electricity 101 solve the problem, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll keep
Yeah.
you posted on
Yeah.
that.
That'll be interesting if that helps
Mhm.
using those.
I think so. I think so. I'm willing to put a little bit of money on it. Not a whole lot. Just a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, well, cool.
You want me to talk a little more about the LBL and things that we've
Yeah, sure.
experienced down in there, or is there a particular thing you wanted to discuss about LBL?
Let's pose it this way. As far as all the experiences that you've had out there, what really stands out to you as something that's really important and that you really want people to get something from?
I think it is, if you're going out there to actually investigate the paranormal, because I consider, like you said earlier, it's all connected, in my opinion. And when you're out there in the middle of the woods, particularly if you're doing it by yourself, you've got to be careful. It's really nothing to play around with just for kicks. I mean, because I feel like it can be dangerous if you're not careful. So that, but you're going to experience all kinds of things out there. I have personally, just all kinds of different phenomena. And that was surprising to me for the LBL, to have so many different things happen, but it's all there. So get ready to experience a lot of different stuff if you go there.
Right. For sure. Is there a story or a moment that really sticks out to you about it?
Oh
that you
gosh.
recall?
I mean, there's a bunch of them.
Right.
I think one of the things that has continuously happened for me is I keep seeing prints. I found 3 different prints out there. That's very interesting. And the howls. The way I can explain the howls that I hear at LBL, to me it's canine. And it has to be a really large creature. Now, I know there are some red wolves in the LBL, but this, whatever we're hearing howl, has to have a huge chest capacity for the long, deep howls that we're hearing. And I have heard them multiple times. And then the coyotes start up. So those are things that have happened. And orbs, we do see orbs a lot. I've seen orbs a lot. Blue ones for me and white ones. I've heard disembodied voices in the middle of the woods. Just all kinds of different things. I've seen shadow people even during the day out there in the woods.
Well, so I mean, yeah. We just saw a picture of a big one, so I don't doubt that at all.
But yeah, I think the scariest for me was probably in August of 22 when me and my friend went down there to camp, and it was just us two ladies down there camping. And we were there to go to the Dogman Conference in Paris, Tennessee. But the campground where we stayed, neither one of us had ever been there before. The only time I had ever been to the LBL was, I think, in 2011 it may have been, and it was for spring break. I took my daughter. We stayed at Lake Barkley Resort. We didn't go out in the woods. It was just a spring break, take your kid, doing fun things.
Right.
So, but this trip was just, we were camping because we waited a little bit later to get our tickets. And then when we tried to find a hotel room, most things were booked up. And the one place, I think it was a state park on the Tennessee side, it was just too expensive. So we camped. And Friday night, I saw something that when people ask me, have you seen a Bigfoot? I really don't know how to answer that question. And I always say, I can only tell you what I saw, because it is not a very typical Bigfoot sighting, if that's what it was. What I saw was standing in the tree line, and it was at night. I did not have a headlamp. I was not prepared really for camping at that time. It was my very first. I had not tent camped in years, and that was mainly because of my mobility issues. But I wanted to go to that conference really bad. So I was like, yeah, let's just do it. So, so
you'll be all right. You'll walk it off, right?
It's walk it off. Just get up in the morning and do some stretches. You'll be all right.
Exactly.
So my friend had gone to the cemetery because there is a little family cemetery inside Boswell. And it's a beautiful area. But it was dark. We forgot firewood. Of course, the one and only thing we forgot was the firewood. So all we had was a little bit of sticks here and there. And that's kind of odd, too, because we're in a forested area. Why in the world? Is there not more stuff to pick up? But there wasn't, just a little bit. So we had like a 30-minute fire.
Oh, that's nice.
It was better than nothing for a little while. But so she's over in the cemetery, and she's filming and taking some pictures. And she does have a headlamp because she was prepared. She had done a lot of camping. She loves to go camping and hiking, so she had all the gear. And so she's over in the cemetery. I'm sitting on the picnic table, and I'm facing the woods. She is over at the cemetery, which is to my right. And I see a figure emerge from out of the wood line. And it is the outline exactly of what I've seen of a Bigfoot. To me, it was like those metal cutouts, but it wasn't a side profile. It was looking me straight on. And it had, that cone head, really large shoulders, and I couldn't see anything from the waist down. And I think Greg had an experience like that, where he saw something, but he couldn't see anything from the waist down. But it had really long arms, so I couldn't really see hands because the arms were so long on it. And I'm sitting on this picnic table in such a way that I can see it standing there, but I can kind of keep my eye on Michelle. In my experiences with the paranormal, because I consider everything connected.
Right.
If you give this thing attention, it makes it stronger. Now, that's just my opinion. That's just been my experience. Your fear, acknowledgement, sometimes that gives them strength from what I have experienced for myself. So I did not want to look at it straight on because I thought that might happen. So I'm terrified, and my heart's just beating out of my chest, and I can see this thing standing there, and it doesn't move. Once it comes out of the woods and stands there, it doesn't move. So I'm watching Michelle over in the cemetery, and she's got her headlamp on. And as she starts coming out of that cemetery, and walking towards the road to come to our campsite, that thing turned its head towards her and moved its body, like taking a step in her direction. About that time, her headlamp swept around right across that area, and there was nothing there. So that was my experience. So when somebody says, have you seen a Bigfoot? It's like, I don't know. I don't know what that was. It looked like a shadow figure to me, but in the line of a Bigfoot. So I'm trying to figure out how and why it presented itself that way. And it's like, so was it mimicking one? Was this just a shadow entity mimicking a Bigfoot? Or was it a Bigfoot paranormal that was cloaking? That's the only two things that I could really figure out why it stood there, and just I could see the outline. I did not see any eyes. I did not see any details. It just looked like a shadow figure on the outline of a Bigfoot.
Very
and
interesting.
I was terrified. It was close. And I have gone back there since then and did a video, and it's on Cryptic, Kentucky. And I sit at that picnic table to give people a perspective of how close that wood line was to us, where the cemetery was, and where I was sitting at that picnic table.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, for sure. That's a lot to digest there, and you're bringing out, like, great questions. Yeah.
Yeah. And my friend, she had her own experiences as well. I mean, that night she had taken pictures in the cemetery, and I'm telling you, one of the pictures, because I saw it myself, it looked like a dog man peeking from behind a tree. I caught the eye sign in the picture, and we blew it up, and you could see the ear, you could see fangs, you could see the claw wrapped around the tree. And she caught other things in her pictures. One was an orb that had all kinds of faces in it. And so we're just looking at each other like, what is going on? I'd had my experience with that Bigfoot shadow figure standing over there, and she comes back from the cemetery, and we're looking at these pictures, and we're like, what is happening? What is going on? It was a full moon that night, and we were also having, I believe it was the Perseid meteor showers that night.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, a lot going on. Yeah. So we set the phone down for maybe just like a few minutes, because we were just like, what is happening? What's going on? And we picked the phone back up, and I kid you not, out of the pictures that she took, those two went blurry. The rest of them were fine. And then when she got back home, I think it's when she got back home, she looked them back up on her phone. They'd all disappeared, and she had to pull them down from the cloud to get them back. But those two that had something in it were still blurry. And we don't know what happened. And that happens to her a lot when she grabs pictures of paranormal stuff. Sometimes all of a sudden they just disappear on her. It's really weird. Like the shadow entity that we saw during the day, I was visually seeing it. Looking at it, standing down there in the forest, looking at it, and I'm like, look at that down there. So I take pictures, she takes pictures. She's not seeing it visually, but it showed up in her picture, but not in mine.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was really, really weird.
That's
like,
amazing.
I could see it visually, but I could not get it on film. But she couldn't see it visually, but when she took pictures of it, it was in her picture.
Wow.
Yeah, we've just had crazy things. Now, there have been times that we've gone down there and nothing has happened. It's been kind of quiet. But more times than not, when you're going out there and walking those trails at night, it finds you.
They have a tendency to do that, yes. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Wow, that with the cameras is just that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's so fascinating that these things seem to have a way with electronics.
Yeah.
It's almost like I wonder if there's something about the schematics that we use to represent electronics has ties to demons in some way.
Yeah. It does make you wonder.
Yeah. Which obviously I'm hinting at yes. The answer is yes. That's why I don't like AI.
I know I don't like AI either
Yeah.
at all. I know. One of the first times that I got to go out really deep in the LBL, and I blame War Criminal for this. He took
I
us
can see
out.
that.
He's like, I can take you someplace scary.
Of course he can. Is he
Of
going to
course.
bring out the box too and let you talk to old Big A out there too? Yeah,
So we
sorry. Keep going.
drove like 7 miles deep, and we went to a cemetery because there are over 200 cemeteries in the LBL. Along that 40-mile stretch of the trace, there's over
Right.
200 cemeteries there. So we go to a cemetery 7 miles deep in the woods. There's nobody around. There's no houses. There's no nothing. It was a full moon. And this time I did have a headlamp. But we're looking in the cemetery and we're being quiet. We hear a woman talk.
Oh.
And we're just like looking at each other. Did you hear that? No, we weren't taping or anything like that to catch it. We were just out there to listen.
Right.
And it wasn't a full sentence, but we did hear a few words, but we couldn't tell you what she exactly said, but you could tell it was a woman's voice and she was trying to talk. I think I just had chills all over me when that happened, because when it's just a different feeling when the sun goes down out there in LBL and those shadows start lengthening and those woods start getting dark. It just takes on a whole new feeling. So when you're way in there deep and then there's nobody around and you hear somebody trying to talk, it is very unnerving. So that was one of my very first that was a trip after the August one that we did, and we were way in there.
Right.
And it was wild. So yeah, I was with Bart that night that they caught that thing with the big green eyes that was moving in the trees, that was huge.
Yeah.
I was there that night when they caught that. We didn't have anything on us to protect ourselves at that point in time. And Bart's like, we need to get back because that thing was huge and it was moving. So we had to get back to the cars so that they could get their weapons. And we stayed behind because it was another cemetery. We stayed behind now Letitia went with them when they went back. And the small group of us that stayed there hanging back at the cars with the cemeteries, we were hearing whispering, people talking up in that cemetery. We were seeing orbs. It's just a very crazy place out there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It takes a special kind of animal to be hanging out with floating lights and disembodied voices. That's
I know.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it tends to, I don't know, call you back.
Oh yeah. I definitely understand that.
Yeah.
For me, when I'm out there doing the film work, because I've had a few people ask me, they're like, okay, you've seen this stuff, like I've seen plenty and they know that, but they're like, when you go out there and you see more stuff, doesn't that give you like flashbacks, PTSD or anything like that? make you think about the things that's happened to you. And I'm always like, no. Like, I'm aware of what it is now. So
Yeah.
does it frighten me? No. But, I'm there for two things. And the critters that want to show have their choice. I
Yeah.
can be there for war if they want. But ultimately, I'm there to try and catch some evidence so that I can show people that, look, the paranormal is real.
Yeah.
And that when you see stuff that you can't explain, and then I'm able to say, you know what also talks about this? The Bible. And I can make a very clear jump from all this stuff to the Bible.
Yep.
It's all for the glory of God.
That's
What I
right.
mean?
That's right.
So that's the way I look at it anyway. Some people are just like, I want to play with the charismatic megafauna. I'm like, no. Go do you. I'm not about that. Not about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so interesting, Anna. And before we get out of here, do me a favor and let's plug the channels one more time, okay?
All right. Well, if you're interested in gardening and that kind of stuff, then head over to Jonestead Farm. Not a lot going on with that right now because we are covered in ice still. It's melting, but we still got a couple of months. But my other one is Cryptic, Kentucky. And I do have quite a few videos on there of where I have found footprints and where I went back to Boswell Landing and videotaped everything that we experienced that night, the area of where it happened. And there's actually some orbs in it that I didn't realize that I had caught the first time. But when I watched the video again, in the woods, you can catch some white orbs back in there. And I do have other videos. I've got the one where we were in Anderson County, and I put together a video on that to show the audio. You can hear the howl. You can hear the rocks being thrown. Also, I did comparison videos of that entity. And then when we went back during the day, Tiffany going down there to those trees to show just how big that thing was. We didn't have a clue the size of it, not really, until she went back and stood there, and we were just blown away at the size of whatever that is. So I've just got all kinds of different videos on there of different investigations that I've done, LBL, Anderson County, and a couple of interviews. I interviewed my mom about a UFO that we saw one night when I was a kid. So I interviewed my mom so that I could get that on tape and have that before she passes.
Right. Super important.
Yeah. And I went back and videotaped during the day where that was. And that's in the videotape.
Right. Very cool. So I think that it's safe to say that the moral of the story is, all y'all out there, go make sure you like and subscribe to Cryptic Kentucky and the Jonestead Farms. Right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, Anna, stick around for a minute and I will be right back, okay?
Okay.
All right. So here we go. Boomski. Well, folks, that's the show for tonight. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And I hope you guys caught the really good, interesting information. She's spitting truth. So I hope you guys caught it. So with all that being said, you guys, you know the drill. I love you. Like, subscribe, comment, do all the stuff. Come hang out with us and tookie. Peace.